again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my esteemed pleasure to bring forth one of my favorite comic artists who I actually got to meet here at North Texas Comic Book Show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Steve Irwin.
Hi, how are you today?
Mr. Irwin, thank you for doing this again. And I got to confess, our first interview that we did, we had a gear failure and unfortunately lost that interview. And I just about wanted to die at home when I was going through it.
Technical difficulties, right?
But we've got all kinds of brand new toys to play with here, and I hope I can give you an actual better interview than the last time I gave you.
Oh, okay. Well, I hopefully we'll have something more current to talk about this time.
And, well, I want to point out that you gave me a piece of artwork after that interview, and I felt so bad because I got this beautiful piece of artwork that you gave to me. I think you actually made fun of me a little bit because I couldn't say anything as you gave it to me. It was a nice piece of artwork of Deathstroke. He just fired through somebody probably.
Oh, okay.
And it's framed and sitting on the wall of our studio at SCNS Live. And thank you again for that.
Yeah, anytime.
Now, of course, you've had a run. Of course, Deathstroke the Terminator was one of my favorite artists. One of my favorite runs of yours, just because I was so into that character. You've done Star Trek. You did the Batman Returns. We got some of your artwork we're going to actually feature over here in a second, but. You've been a staple in this industry for a while, and I got to ask you, what was some of your favorite work you've done?
Well, Deathstroke was a lot of fun to do, and the first big project I worked on at DC was Checkmate, and
Right.
I enjoyed both of those titles for pretty much the same reason, in that they were both very international in scope, and I never had to. I was never locked into drawing one location all the time. I was never stuck in Gotham City, for example. Every storyline was set someplace else, and usually it was international setting. This was, especially with Checkmate, it was before internet, or at least before I had access to it. So I spent a lot of time in the library doing a lot of old school research for what cities looked like, Venice and wherever we were setting up the stories, and just kind of getting into the feel of doing each issue so that each location looked different and had a different feel from each one. So it's kind of like shooting James Bond movies, I guess.
Especially with a character like Deathstroke, and with Checkmate. Admittedly, I wasn't that much into Checkmate, but I did love Deathstroke. And now that knowing that, it kind of makes me want to go back and pull out some of my old Deathstroke comics and check them out again.
Mm-hmm.
But what was actually your first work that got you in as a penciler? Because I've got your whole bio over here.
Right. Being a penciler in terms of
you're an artist.
Drawing the story in terms of storytelling, actually, more than the pencil art, was a little-known book for First Comics that was called Shatter, and Shatter was, as far as I know, the first computer-generated comic book. That was its original. The whole marketing plan behind that. It was created by First Comics. It was created on very early Macs. The artist's name eludes me at the moment, but I think he wrote and created all the artwork on it for most of the run of the book. And to complete the run of the book, I was asked to pencil the pages for the remaining issues, and those would be scanned and digitally enhanced and colored again on early Macs, and then published like that. But the reason they asked me to do it was I had a good, strong sense of storytelling, and very clean pencil style that could be scanned, and they could play with it pretty good. And then that led to a more regular penciling job for First Comics, which was a couple of issues or backup stories, actually, for one of their main titles, Grimjack.
Oh, I remember Grimjack. Yeah,
Grimjack was fun. My first real penciling stories, where you could actually see my pencil work, that I actually inked the first two segments of it, were 8-page backup stories in 3 issues of Grimjack. And then I did finished pencils and inks on Tim Truman's final issue of Grimjack, and then inked the following issue after that. And then it was essentially that led to work at DC.
This did? Really?
Yeah, the Grimjack work led to my work at DC. The editor I worked with at first wound up taking an editor job at DC, and he was happy with my the output that I did as a penciler, and he saw progress from issue to issue to issue, because I was very new in working in comics at the time. So he told me this in person at a convention about that time, is that he saw progress from issue to issue, and that I met my deadlines, and I was dependable on these books.
Probably a good idea when you're trying to get work, being dependable and on time.
Yeah, and you never know who you're working for is going to wind up going somewhere else, and he will remember you. And when an editor needs somebody, especially on a book that might be late or something, I think the first thing that they're looking for is dependability. Are they going to get
who's got credibility?
Yeah, are they going to get the work on time and keep it on schedule? And probably this, second or third thing down the line is, style. Is it like a sellable style, or are you a good name or something? But when you're when you're just starting out and nobody knows who you are yet, your future career pretty much depends on the editors that you work for, and they are going to know you by the work that you turn in, and do you turn it in on time? So that landed my first job with DC, which was the last 3 issues of Vigilante.
Oh.
Which when it was offered to me, I didn't know that was the case, that I was going to be finishing that book. It was 48, 49, and 50, and I think 50 was going to be the big finale issue. And I didn't know anything about that until I met with the writer and the editor at a convention. I think it was a Kansas City convention, but it's been a long time now. And they filled me in on what the plan was for the last bit of Vigilante.
See, now I want to see some of your Vigilante art, because I do remember that run. I mean, I was very big into DC during that time, and admittedly, hearing some of this, I'm like, yes, he was on that. He was on.
Yeah.
Your style is one of those where I before I really knew who you were, I would just pick it up because I was like, oh, that guy. I'll be honest, when I was younger, I just go, I like that guy's artwork. Oh, that's him again. So I would just pick it up. Oh, here's a nice commission that looks like you did with Ravager. And then there's this one.
Yeah, I do a lot of commission work nowadays.
Apparently people like posting it as well.
I started coming back to conventions. Somebody asked me to be a guest at a convention.
Now, this is 48 right here.
Yeah. I was asked to come back to some local conventions, and it had been like a large number of years since I'd been to one, and people were lining up with big stacks of Deathstroke and other books for me to autograph, and asking for sketches, and do you do commissions, and this kind of questions, and kind of caught me off guard. So I started actually doing commissions, and then they would post things on Comic Art Fans.
Did it really surprise you that much that people actually remembered who you were? I mean,
it had been like the better part. It had been more than 10 years since I did anything comics related.
Well,
It's not longer than that.
If there's anything about us nerds today, we are nostalgic. So
I found that out. I mean, I had gotten so sidetracked into doing advertising and other kind of artwork that I had been totally out of the comics loop altogether. And I was actually very surprised. I thought, well, I'll probably see a few familiar faces at these conventions, but I was surprised at a whole lot of people showing up. I kind of felt like, some kind of like a TV show star that you remember from one show, but you haven't seen him in years, and then he shows up at a convention, and then there's like a line out the door. People remember him fondly, and and he's surprised people remember the show, let alone.
Well, admittedly, like the first time we did a show where you here at North Texas Comic Show, and you were sitting right next to us, because the thing about these microphones is we can talk low so no one can hear us.
Right.
And I'm sitting there just going, So Steve Irwin's sitting to the left of me. It's Steve Irwin, Deathstroke artist. I'm just like leaning over to Chris, and he's like, "Calm down, Sparky." But so yes, you are, as a fan of your artwork, you are well remembered. But you are doing some things here. You got something new going on, right?
Yes.
You're working with a graphic novel here.
It's a graphic novel.
Oh, is this a kick? It is a Kickstarter.
It's a Kickstarter program.
I'm going to put that up there.
Okay.
Tell us about this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually came into it quite late. The basic story behind it is that these couple of guys who work for the Virginia Edition Company, which they own, or they are the caretakers of the Robert Heinlein properties, and they publish and republish in all different versions, pretty much his entire run of books. They keep his books out there in the public, in bookstores and in libraries. And these pair of guys that work for that company have been trying for a long time to get some of Heinlein's books adopted into graphic novel form. Their argument being that his work is kind of going by the wayside as far as the younger audience is concerned. Older people
That's
know
scary to hear.
Yeah, unless you hear about Heinlein's work in school and are directed to it by teachers, English teachers, or whoever, he's just kind of gone by the wayside. Some of his properties have been adapted to film, but nothing has been done in graphic novels. And their concern was, they're missing a whole younger audience out there who's
Yes.
being influenced by his work. And after quite a bit of time, they convinced the powers that be at the company to take a stab at a graphic novel. Looking at graphic novels as a legitimate literary version of a book. I mean, it's not just bubblegum comic books.
No.
I think is what the people, the powers that be at the company, were remembering them. A lot of people have thoughts of comic books as junk reading, but those of us in the know have a great respect for this visual way of storytelling. Know that a lot of graphic novels, certainly if not comic books, are actually geared for an older adult audience, and they can be very sophisticated. The artwork can be very, very good. And so, long story short, they were given permission to use one of Heinlein's juvenile series books,
Citizens of the Galaxy.
Citizen of the Galaxy. And so these guys put out a Kickstarter campaign on it. They figured out their best guess as to what it would cost to put a book like that together, and put out Kickstarter on it. And it ran pretty well. It kind of
I'll
plateaued.
say it did.
Well, it plateaued at one point, and they came to the realization that they didn't have the complete package for a graphic novel set up. That they had the license, they had the official okay to do the book, and they knew that they could do the adaptation as far as a script was concerned, but they didn't have an artist. And you got to have an artist for the graphic novel. So they started looking around for one and making calls in their circles, and it was very much a networking kind of thing of a person that they contacted would contact someone else or make a recommendation to someone else, and people were either busy or had other things on their plate, couldn't do it, so they would recommend someone else. And ultimately, it's kind of the story of a friend of my cousin's best friend's wife, something kind of like that. This guy wound up with my phone number and called me up out of the blue one day and asked me if I would be interested in working on this graphic novel. And it was an officially licensed graphic novel of Heinlein's properties. And so I told him, I'm intrigued, tell me more. And
Are you a big Heinlein fan?
I've only read a couple of his books, and it had been a long time ago, probably high school and just after. So I was familiar with his name, and I'd read some of his books, and probably some short stories.
I was trying to see if we could find a sample of the artwork. Oh, I did.
Yeah,
Does that look familiar? Or
that,
this doesn't.
that's a sample that I gave these guys.
Oh,
That what you're looking at there is actually from the movie. It's tied into the movie Independence Day, and it was.
I know. I was kind of looking at this like, oh, you just. Yeah, this isn't.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that is
it
the
was-
shuttle. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, they did a movie. They did a prequel to the movie. I think it was Malibu Comics or somebody.
Oh, I think
did
I found.
did a prequel, and that's a Star Trek page that you're looking
That's
at there.
not it.
You're not going to find any actual artwork for this graphic novel online just
Well,
yet,
darn.
to be honest with you. I've got some with me, but it's not online yet. And the reason behind that
I
is
was trying to cheat. I'll admit it.
that the reason that there's not anything online yet is I just now started drawing the thing.
Oh, okay.
When you're dealing with a licensed property, depending on who it is you're dealing with, you have to jump through a whole lot of different hoops to get an okay script. Be sure that you're not taking too many liberties with the story that they've approved for you to have. So there were a few drafts of the script adaptation. And while they were working on that, I was working on some concept sketches for characters and backgrounds, the cities and that kind of thing. Backing up just a little bit, after they contacted me about this, and I was really intrigued on working at it, on doing the thing. I had tentatively agreed to do it, and then I downloaded the book on Kindle and spent more than a weekend reading the book, and I really enjoyed the book. It was a very interesting read, and as I was reading it, I was thinking about how I would draw the thing. What do these different characters look like to me? And I was keeping little sketches and thumbnail sketches. And fortunately for me, Mr. Heinlein was very vague in his descriptions of the story, of the characters and the placements of things in the story. He spoke of things very generally. He concentrated on characterization. He concentrated on story and plot. But in terms of description of the characters, descriptions of places, he was very general. So it's not like The Lord of the Rings, where there's very solid kind of illustrations to go by from original illustrations from the books, or even detailed descriptions in the text. None of that really is there. So from an artistic standpoint, kind of the sky's the limit. I can pretty much do what I want with
Oh,
it.
well, if you need any models, I can give you some headshots. You can make any character you want kind of look like me. I'm just going to just throw that out there, just...
That was part of the Kickstarter thing, is
Right.
that when people could ask that they be drawn as characters in the book. So that's
Considering how vague it was, it kind of works right along with the Kickstarter then.
yeah, and it works for me pretty well too, because one of the things that used to get me in trouble with my editors at DC is I would sometimes draw characters that looked too much like real people. I would draw a character that looked like, if I were going to cast like a TV star for a particular character in a book, I would draw that person in there, but try not to make it look too much like them. But the editor would say, "This
But they
looks
would
too much
spot
like him. Let's change him."
Why
so
couldn't you just go, really? I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it myself. You're clearly reaching there. Just,
So
you can tell I'm
I
getting
learned
busy.
not to do that after a while, but that also got me a couple of jobs at DC doing where I needed to draw likenesses of people. Batman Returns, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And the Star Trek work that just fit really well with the Star Trek editor, because I could draw the characters that looked like the actors and that kind of thing.
So the people that actually do pick up on it, I totally meant to do that. Totally meant to do
yeah. So that's something I get to play up now, is that I can draw people in comic books that actually look like these people. Nobody is going to know who they are except them. But
But
they
it's
paid
still
the
something that's
extra
very
Kickstarter
special to
thing.
somebody else.
Yeah, it's going to be very special to them.
I'd be showing it off to everybody.
And
Who's that
it
look
also
like?
plays to me, because I don't have to figure out what these characters look like.
They
I
give you a
just
couple of headshots, and there you go.
Yeah, these guys are ready to go. I just got to figure out the costume to put them in.
Cool.
So anyway, long story short, if it's not already too late for that, I got the final draft of OK script, and I was working on it last week. I was doing like final tweaks on character designs and stuff the week before, and this last week, that's pretty much, it was my day job. Was just sitting down working, drawing these pages, and so I've got like the first 4.5 pages pretty much complete, and I brought a few pages with me to show it at the show.
I kind of wish
so
I
people could get an idea.
kind of wish I'd brought a couple out here, but I'm going to go in there and look at some after we're done with this.
I brought them out here with me.
Oh, give me. May I please see them? Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude there at all.
No, not a problem.
Wait a second. I think I got it. There we go. Oh. Can you grab that other camera, and Chris, since you're right there, grab the other cam so I can show people this? Hold on. Did you move my cameras anyway? Oh, you did switch my cameras. I have to build this now. So.
Well, more technical difficulties.
No, I just got to build something real quick. So there we go. I didn't want that camera. I wanted this one and this one. I'll get rid of that one. Okay, so I've got the book right here. And I'll just make that a little bit bigger for everybody to see. There we go. So
Now, I had just sent these pages day before yesterday to my collaborators, so they probably will be posted online in the next day or so, as soon as they have an opportunity to do that.
I know you can't exactly see what's up there, Chris. So here, just set this on the table here. That way I can show off some of this. This is great looking.
If there's too much glare off the pages in the book, I can pull them out of the sleeves.
Oh, I think it's coming through just fine. So, wow. And is there another page over here? Or that's
There should just be 3 pages in there. I have a 4th that's still sitting on my drawing board at home.
Ah.
I was hoping to have it done for today, but
I'm being very careful
had
with
other
this, by the
things.
way.
Yeah, and those are just type pencils.
They look great.
We're wanting to do a little bit different feel on this book, keep it a little bit softer. So I'm just doing very tight pencils, and we'll be doing Photoshop coloring on the pencils themselves rather than inking them in a traditional way.
Oh, so what are you using for this book? You said, are you using just strictly digital or just pencils? I'm sorry, or is that just the color?
I'm drawing it in pencil.
Okay,
and
sorry,
then,
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and then the pencil art's being scanned, and one of my collaborators is going to be Photoshop coloring it.
I totally dud on that. I apologize.
That's okay.
No, but
It's an unusual way of doing it. It's skipping the whole inking process, because we really just wanted to not do that solid, hard black line on it, give it a little bit softer feel.
Oh, I see.
One of the comics-related projects I have been doing over the last number of years was I contributed some stories to a line of books by Capstone Publishing, and what they had done was create a line of books, hardback books that were intended for young libraries, like elementary school libraries. And they did a whole line of, I don't know, probably 60 or better titles that are history books, essentially. And they're all graphic novels. They're 24-page stories with a little bit of an educational lead-in and a little bit of follow-up history on the back end of it. And in the middle is a 24-page graphic novel story, or graphic novel telling of the historical event, whatever it happened to be. And then they ranged from the Alamo to the Battle of Gettysburg to the Wright brothers airplane, and various things like that. And I did like 6 or 8 of those. Most of them were done in a traditional comics fashion, where I penciled it, it was inked and colored and lettered pretty much in traditional form. except the last one that I did, which was a history of skateboarding. With there was a movie not too long ago about the boys from Dogtown or something
Right.
like that. It's about these guys that took their surfing skills and put them to skateboards and created essentially what we see in our culture today as skateboarding and all these really cool things that skateboarders can do. Those guys back in the 70s started all that.
Right.
So that actually wound up as one of these history books. And what set that apart for me was the publisher asked me to just do type pencils on it rather than having it inked. And so I just did type pencils, and they put a very talented colorist on it who essentially painted the pages behind my pencil work. And when I saw the book, I was floored. I was really, really happy with the final outcome of that. And that was one of the items that I showed my collaborators on Citizen of the Galaxy, was as an option of the traditional inking, what do you think of doing it like this? And they liked the look. It was a much softer feel to it. And so that's one reason we decided to go this direction with it.
Well, it's great to, I mean, honestly, it's great to hear that someone is adapting Heinlein's work, because literature shouldn't be lost, period. But if it can be adapted to another media to tell the story, then, that's always good. Of course, artwork is always going to bring us young comic artists in. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say it's an easier way to tell the story, because it just gives me another aspect to look at the story, because I read books, but I love my comic books. Clearly, I love my comic books.
Right.
But as far as Citizen of the Galaxy, yeah, you can go to that website and go ahead and get in on the graphic novel, because let's see here, I had that up. You offer the ebook, and hardcovers, and you can get both of them for not too much here. Not more than that's been at a Barnes and Noble. So
right.
It sounds like something great to pick up. Me being a Heinlein fan, I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to. That's all there is to it. When's is there a completion date for any of this set, or do you have a deadline? Or
I'm understanding that our publication date, we should have books out on the stands. I want to say like April or May, something like that.
It's not too far away.
So no, it's not far away. So it's literally my day job right now. I sit down and work on this thing, keep ahead of the art schedule and everything right now. And this time of year especially, because all these holidays and stuff are popping up. So
yeah, the holiday season, got Thanksgiving, everything. We take our break for that time, but I can guarantee you when this does come out, I'm gonna make sure that it gets featured on the show, just so I can tell everybody, hey, remember we talked about this? Boom, here it is. So, and plus I want it. So
yeah.
I love showing out things. I got this here, so.
Right, I'll bring you an autographed copy of it.
No, don't say stuff like that, because I'm just gonna. Sorry, try to calm down. Like I said, you are one of my favorite artists, sir. I'm glad to have you on the show. Thanks a lot for the interview. Is there anything else you want to say before we go ahead and close it out?
Nothing immediately comes to mind other than I hope everybody has a happy Halloween. It's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yep, we're taking that day off. I got to get my candy. So.
Okay.
Mr. Irwin, thanks again for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. I greatly appreciate it.